government. Toda government a responsible government. A government inotya vanhu. Kwete hurumende yekuti muna minister of finance nyika yacho haina mari. There is no currency yenyika. Muri kushandisa yakune dzimwe nyika. Minister ayo unotoramba aripo. Hakuda kutopuwa rimwe basa. Isu kana tapinda munhu asingagoni basa rowa pasi uende kumba. Popinda munhu anorowa basa. Vanhu vopuwa mari. Nyika yofamba zvakanaka.
Mosanenyi wana babai. Jimi magalamba kuderera mashoto. Rodi wana musiki. Chonaiga chakanika.
Just about a few weeks ago, the Reserve Bank Governor, John Mshayabanu, released his monetary policy statement. And there was a lot of things that he spoke about in terms of how business is going to work and how business is going to be able to interact with our economy. But we want to sit down and talk to those in business to find out how they're navigating this economic environment. And if Zimbabwe can get a turn that will bring prosperity in 2030. Now, this is the Free Talk in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. Join me after this break as we talk to you about so what? Why should you care? Now, welcome back to this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. And on this episode, we're talking economics, we're talking business, we're talking what it means to you and your children at home. Now, for me to discuss this, I'm going to be joined by Tano Managing Director, Wallen Mangere, a sales lead in software and service sales and business. He has extensive businesses in SAP, ERP, banking, insurance, and mining. He's a senior executive with 17 years of experience in managing professional services and sales business units. Now, he also recently, as he grows Tano Investments, he also acquired subsidiaries of Altron, a Johannesburg-listed company that is worth over 4 billion rand. Now, thank you for joining me and welcome to this, the Free Talk.
Thank you, Blessing.
Beautiful. Now, Wallen, you are a Zimbabwean, but and you've been in business. How has been business treating you?
Well, business has been favorably good to us. Of course, with the natural ups and downs in business, the COVID pandemic obviously had some challenges globally, but for us and us as a group, we are blessed and happy to be where we are. So business has been good, blessed.
I want us to focus mainly on your growth as Tano and how are you managing to grow when in Zimbabwe most business people are folding. We've seen what's happening to Zimbabwe. It's debranching. We've seen a number of business people exiting the market. So let's talk about that.
Well, look, so I hear a lot of that from the various corners of the country and of the region. In any business, you need to be agile and you need to be able to be reactive to the market conditions. Our Zimbabwean position is very deliberate. We are a Zimbabwean-born company, and we believe in Zimbabwe and growing the economy and looking to help government and the populace of Zimbabwe achieve that ND2, the National Development Plan. Simplistically, Tano as a group has been able to leverage our strengths in financially in the different countries. The one thing about Zimbabwe for sure is the need for organizations to understand the market dynamics, the financial trajectory, as well as the current economy. We've been successful in Zimbabwe because we've had a lot of support from our customers. Consistently, we've been able to provide a quality service in the technology space. And as a result, customers have been loyal and faithful to us. The government of Zimbabwe has been a pillar group of as a customer. So we provide a lot of digital solutions, and especially in the SAP space, to the government of Zimbabwe. And as a result, we've had a very solid customer base, which has sustained us since our inception in Zimbabwe in 2018.
Yeah, but how is the currency space treating you? You know, because most businesses say they make money. Sometimes they don't even make profit.
Well, look, so profitability is difficult, right? So I think the one challenge we have in our country, in Zimbabwe, is the numerous shift in policies, whether it's monetary policy or just statutory instruments that constantly evolving. Well, the government is introducing them to sometimes to curtail inflation, et cetera, et cetera. But in my view, we are a US dollar-based economy at the moment, right? Even though the country is starving for dollars. The challenge obviously is, when you have a multi-currency environment, it begs, it creates that scenario where which currency is more important. You go into some institutions, they only want to give you Zim dollars because that's what they have. And you have other institutions that are reluctant to receive them. And, you have to be able to understand how you manage that in those scenarios. We face constant challenges, and I think some of the legislation becomes a bit bureaucratic, but we understand why these things are done. We procure, I would say, 90% of our products, which is in the IT infrastructure, and some of our services, software, hardware, enterprise hardware, from outside the country. So it requires foreign currency. And at times, we actually do not have access to the foreign currency to be able to satisfy the needs that. So it is a challenge, but our ability to leverage our external businesses outside of Zimbabwe to sometimes satisfy our currency obligations has helped us. But indeed, it's not a walk in the park when it comes to currency.
Yeah, you said some clients just want to pay you in the local currency because that's what they have. Now, many have said that there's an arbitrage on this local currency to foreign currency because of the bank rate.
Right. So I think there's two things, right? So if you are looking at the currency situation and you're pricing your goods in local currency, your externally procured goods in local currency, people always talk about the gap between the official bank rate and the black market rate. But that only really comes into play if you're going to be participating on the black market, right? Because if your bankers have access to dollars, then you will get dollars at the official rate. The challenge is the bankers don't always have that forex available for you at those rates. So I think it has forced some other, business people to go and source this foreign currency have alternatives in sourcing currency, which obviously becomes a bit more expensive than what is offered in the regular channels.
Yeah. So how do you bridge that gap? Because you tell me that 90% of your solutions are imported.
Well, look, so I think it's a combination of things. So we sometimes put the burden on the customer to pay us in US dollars, or otherwise we can't satisfy the requirement. But we do know that some of the government entities have challenges. And so, for example, our utilities organizations, maybe they collect revenue in Zim dollars, and it may be difficult for them to get forex from their invoices. So, in instances like that, we have pre-arrangements with our bankers. We've been very supportive where we ask them in advance to start looking, because the lead time from the time you put in an application for Zim dollars to get US dollars can be quite lengthy. So we would sometimes, work with our bankers to look and see if they can assist us in getting. We've been successful most of the time. Sometimes we have challenges, and when we have those gaps is when we leverage our entities our entities outside of Zimbabwe to settle on our behalf.
So you keep talking about entities outside Zimbabwe. Let's talk about these entities. What entities do you have outside Zimbabwe?
Yes, blessed. So we are operating Tana Digital Solutions in 7 countries. So we're in Zimbabwe, where we have our larger operation in terms of people. We have an office in Kenya, in Nairobi, Mozambique, Botswana, Zambia, Malawi, and South Africa. And most recently, as of November last year, we have an office in the United Kingdom as part of our ambitions and European expansion.
How easy is this for you? Because having sat down and spoken to other business people, it looks like when you say you're from Zimbabwe and you're opening businesses in other countries, it's quite a huge task.
Oh, look, it's business, right? It's not for everyone, and I can say it's got its challenges, but it's got its rewards as well. So we've been blessed, or fortunate rather, to have been able to expand so quickly into 7 African countries and now into Europe in a space of 5 years. It hasn't been an easy journey. It's been a lot of reinvestment and a lot of sacrifices. So we also thought it is quite important to diversify our offerings into the different African countries, just to obviously to diversify our presence. But for sure, it has been a challenging journey. Each country in Africa has got its own nuances and its own ways of doing business. But I am fortunate to have a very strong leadership team that is very strategic in nature and has helped us achieve the feat to this point.
Where are you getting the money to expand? Because a lot of people talk about the constraints in getting capital.
Well, look, so from a Zimbabwean perspective, I must say that it has been quite challenging accessing financing from the bank for various reasons. Our banks, for obvious reasons, have not been giving out, for lack of a better word, loans without collateral, and which I think poses a challenge for anyone who's aspiring to grow in business within Zimbabwe. The reality is businesses need lines of credit. There's times where cash flows become tight, but if you don't have a financial system backing you up within the environment you're growing, it becomes very difficult. And this is why you are mentioning an exodus of maybe some companies having now struggled to continue operating in an environment. And I think one of the reasons is just really access to capital and access to finance.
Mm-hmm. So where are you getting it?
So you went back to that point. I thought I'd... Well, look, so I think, but what we have been able to do is because of our external... I lived in the United States 20 years, so we've been able to leverage some of our credit lines in the other countries to be able to aid our expansion, right? So because we have a track record and we have strong balance sheets, it becomes a bit easier now to be able to access financial products in the different markets. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we can do these, requests for money from banks outside of Zimbabwe has helped.
Let us talk about you're in the technology industry.
Yes.
And at the moment, technology is moving very fast. And we have AI. Talk to me, how does this aid or threaten your business?
Well, look, so I think this conversation on technology, it depends who you ask. We have already started the adoption of AI, right? So we're already skilling our workforce. We're already going and training in AI and sending our guys for training. The OEMs that we represent, for example, SAP, they have a very, very deliberate and strong AI strategy. So for us, it's a business opportunity where now we're going to be bringing AI to our customers. We're training our skills. And AI in terms of the narrative that it's a threat to people's jobs or the way of thinking, for sure, it's going to change the way people think and the way people react and the way people do things. But it's inevitable. You have to adopt to the new technology. If you don't have an AI strategy in your business today, your business is going to either die within the next 5 years, and I know that's a very aggressive word, or you're going to be in a very seriously challenged environment where more innovative companies are going to come and absorb and take over that traditional space that companies are operating in.
Yeah, I'm going to put you a bit in a tight spot. You said one of your major clients is government.
Correct.
And we all know that government has not been moving very fast in terms of technology in Zimbabwe. And does that give you comfort?
Well, look, so I know for a fact that there's a significant government departments that are probably 10, 15 years behind in technology. And I think it's for a variety of reasons, funding, maybe lack of strategy. But I'm really confident with the current crop of leaders in the technology space in government. They are very forward thinking. Zimbabwe is one of the few countries that has been quite open, to the cloud journey. So, I mean, if you look and talk to anyone in the technology space, they tell you go cloud or you're going to die because of the benefits of cloud. And I say this comfortably because we are engaged with the Zimbabwe, for example, the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. Very bold leaders there have embarked on a digital transformation journey to move and upgrade their existing ERP infrastructure into a private cloud environment. So it's instances like this where you see leaders taking bold steps to and understanding that this is the only way we can be more efficient, more reliable, and more agile by moving up with technology. So I'm starting to see it. That the government also has an e-government department, which is led by Dr. Matekara, and he's also very deliberate about moving the government and the state-owned entities forward in terms of technology with the new stuff, the cloud, cloud solutions, AI. We're talking about IoT. So I'm quite confident that the appetite is there. But of course, like with any other government, I'm sure they have their own challenges in terms of funding to get some of these things done. But I do see a deliberate effort of government entities, and I just mentioned Zimra only but one, but we've done a transformation project at Portras as well, where we've implemented an S4 on-prem solution for them and for their ERP, and we've got many other examples, right? So I think the message is resonating, and I think everybody understands that you need the technology to be able to be more progressive and to compete.
I sometimes get a sense that technology is just being implemented without taking the whole nation with it. If you go to your universities, you find that still assignments are still being handed on as a hard copy, and you also find that there's less computers in schools and stuff like that. But do you have that sense? You can push back as much as you want.
Look, so I think I haven't been to the universities to actually see handwritten assignments. And,
typed, but they're hard copy.
Yes, but I believe you type on a computer, so I think that negates the fact that they don't have access to technology. But you're right? The cost, the entry level of the basic technology device in Africa is still quite high, and it's going to take some time before everybody has a computer. I mean, in our village in Gutu Sarikai, I am quite confident that there is no laptop or PC at the high school there, but it's going to take time, right? And taking the nation forward, I think it's a phased approach, I believe. And if you look at the the adoption on mobile devices in Zimbabwe. We've got a very high adoption level in terms of smartphones, right? That's technology on its own. The average person in Zimbabwe is using a smartphone. Smartphone is a technology device. It's a computer. You can do emails. You can do. You can read Word documents, Excel. So I guess I'm just saying that I hear you, and I think I concede, but it depends how you look at it, right? The national infrastructure, I think the deliberate conversation around let's make sure our systems are a bit more secure. Do we have network connectivity to talk to different, from connectivity from different corners of the country? I think that strategy and that behavior is there. How we get everybody to have a computer and a printer, and I think it's still to come.
Yeah, there's this debate that has been going on around technology, especially data. Now you are in 7 countries.
Yes, 8 countries.
And 8 countries, and you have the privilege of working in all these 8 countries.
Right.
How much is the cost of doing business for you in terms of data costs compare Zimbabwe with the other countries?
So it's how long is a piece of string, right? So I think the cost of data has considerably come down in Zimbabwe. In my opinion, I believe that the data costs, if I compare it to what we spend in a Botswana or Mozambique or South Africa, for that matter, or even in the UK, is slightly higher than average. But with the introduction of new players like the Starlinks and the other ISPs, we've seen it come down. I think the competition in connectivity has helped the consumer to get better results in terms of cost of data.
How important is this for your business and for people who rely on your solutions?
No, look, absolutely right. So everything that we do is in the digital space, and connectivity is key. Our customers must have access to reliable internet and connectivity. And for example, we have dedicated lines for customers that connect to our data centers, and the cost of that can be quite significant. And I've really had situations where the cost of connectivity has made us relook at the solutions, at an optimal solution that we want to give to a customer. But because of connectivity, either reliability or cost, we've had to then look at other alternatives to deploy solutions. So it is a significant point.
Yeah, I want to take you to politics. In economy, in some economies, politics doesn't really affect business. But in Zimbabwe, it's really difficult to run a business and forget and not look at the politics. How has the politics been for you and the business that you run?
Well, look, so I'll tell you, I'm not a politician and I know very little about politics, but I think we've been a very successful business without participating in politics. I think every environment has got its own nuances around politics. I am confident as a Zimbabwean that we have made some mistakes in terms of policy, but I think we've also the government has also tried to rectify some of those mistakes, and I think some of the mistakes will take longer to fix. But it's the political persuasion, I guess, that attracts investors or pushes them away, or and I'll say this openly. We've had situations where we've asked our partners to handle certain transactions, but there's sometimes this notion that Zimbabwe carries a lot of political risk, and it's difficult to do business, and etc. And that's obviously brought up by certain events that have happened in our environment. But as a Zimbabwean, look, I don't worry about those things. I know.
Why don't you worry? Because doesn't that affect your bottom line?
Well, look. So when I say it doesn't affect me, I mean from a perspective of being told Zimbabwe from a country risk is difficult. So I'm Zimbabwean. Where do I go? Right.
You just made lots of money in Zimbabwe in the last financial year, like 5 million in revenue.
So it's a number slightly higher than that, but
but you didn't make any profit. And aren't you worried? I mean, how does that happen? In terms of revenue, you're doing, I think, 15 million. In revenue, you've raised 15 million, no profits whatsoever. But you're a businessman, you're in business for profit. Your partners also want profit, don't they?
Well, look, so I think it's so you've put me in a corner to answer this question a bit differently. So yeah, so there's different reasons why companies profitable and not profitable. Yes, some of it is really around the shift in policy. We had a strategy of we had put a lot of confidence in the ZIG. At some point, right? No, we still do actually, by the way. It's now quite stable. And, so when the new governor came in and said, look, there's certain measures and this thing is going to be stable, it's not going to run, we maintained our ZIG position. So we didn't run away from, for example, not holding our ZIGs when we get paid. So a lot of our government departments paid us in local currency. And the event of, I can't remember what month it was, where the ZIG was devalued.
You lost
40% of your value. So, it's difficult to recover from that, right? 40%, and we work in an industry where you're making maybe 15 to 20% margin. And if 40% of your balance sheet is erased in a particular currency, it then becomes difficult to come back. But that's not the only reason why we probably ended up at a break-even position. There's other reasons, customers struggling to pay because of the economic conditions, customers going out of business, some of our customers have gone into corporate rescue. And obviously, if their customers are not able to pay, then it becomes a bit tricky. But yeah, it's a combination of reasons, and it's not all political. Some of it is just the environment.
But if there's anything that you could change about Zimbabwe for you, for business to thrive, what would you change?
Look, I would just really implore our government to believe in a strategy, right? And I say this respectfully. We have seen, at least in the times that we've operated in Zimbabwe, 3 currencies with the US dollar. And it's important for us to pick a fight and stay the course. I believe that the change in policy is halfway, or this is not quite working. I think a lot of times it's a lot of good policies, but they're not given a chance to come to light. That's the one ask, right? I think all business people that we speak to ask the same thing. Let's have the same regulations in January from a currency perspective and from a banking regulation perspective, and from that we have in January. Let's see those all through to December at a minimum, or even 3-4 year policies. Because as business people, some of our positions that we take are 3-4 year positions, right? So it's a long-term play, long-term project. And if things change in year 2 or year 1 of your project, you can stand to lose your money, a lot of money, or even go out of business. So I think for me, that's the one key thing that I would ask from our leaders and from our legislators to be able to. And I'll say this, look, since that last devaluation of the ZIG has been quite stable as a currency. With our finance department, we monitor it very closely, because every morning you say, has anything happened? So I think some of these things are now starting to.
Some argue that stability is artificial, because if you go out on the street, it doesn't reflect that.
So again, and if you remember earlier in our conversation, we try to avoid the street, right? So
you try, but you're not successful.
No. So we avoid the street, and this is for obvious reasons. We tend to use the regular channels. We use our bankers. We've got very strong relationships with our bankers. I remember, one conversation I was having with our banker, and I said, I'm not sure why not so many companies would actually come to us and give us a zig for dollars for this willing buyer, willing seller exchange thing. And I said to my bank, I said, but I think there's no confidence that you are able to find. And there's certain points in our relationship with my banker where we're sitting with Zig, I need US dollar payment, and he simply can't source the Zig. And I was saying to him, yeah, it's situations like that tend to make people lose confidence that my banker can show up for me. And the banker's got his restrictions because the Reserve Bank probably doesn't release the amount of forex that they need to service their customers. So there's a combination of reasons. It really depends on your business strategy. So what a lot of consumers do and a lot of businesses do is they price with that margin of the street. And it works for some, but we try to stay away from that.
I want us to look also at the monetary policy statement where the governor also reduced retention from 75 to 70, and that affects business side. How are you affected?
Not really, because we don't do a lot of exports. I'm assuming you're talking about the export retention.
Yes.
Yeah. No. So it does.
You've got companies across, like you're in South Africa. You account your revenue from South African operations in South Africa. You don't take them back home.
No. So we're structured very differently. So the Zimbabwean entity is an independent company. It's our entity is held 100% locally in Zimbabwe, and the different entities have got the different holdings in those countries. And we do that to be able to leverage the financial markets in other countries. So if we were held in Zimbabwe for the rest of the countries, our access to finance and capital in those other countries would be very difficult because of the perceived country risk. So these are some of the challenges, and these are some of the strategies as a business person that you employ to be able to sustain. So if our Zimbabwean business is going through some challenges, then we look at Kenya and say, well, what's the interest rates in Kenya? What can Kenya borrow on us? And we do intercompany loans. And that's kind of the competitive advantage, or the advantage that we have as opposed to an entity just operating solely out of Zimbabwe.
Yeah. Informalization of our economy in Zimbabwe, how much has that hit you?
Well, for us, again, we don't do a lot of B2C. We do a lot of B2B and B2G. So
my guy who's sitting there in the living room, I was wondering what is B2B, B2C.
So B2B is obviously business to business. So we sell to other businesses. And B2C is business to customer, B2G business to government. So I think the informal sector has really hit the guys in the consumer space and in the retail space, because it's easy enough to go ahead and buy 12 loaves, 12 pieces of soap and open your corner store and sell informally. In our space, I don't think there's a lot of informal businesses that are playing or competing with us. I think everyone is really formalized. You can't operate in our environment without a tax clearance. You can't operate in our environment without NASA, because then you can't do your tenders, you can't do your business. So it's really, I think, affected the guys who are dealing with the volume business or consumers directly. But for us, indirectly affects us by those, our retail customers, starting to feel the brunt and not as profitable, and the cash flows tight and inability to pay us. So it's that. So some of the projects with some of our big consumer goods companies is some of the projects have been put on hold because of cash flows and because of profitability and other issues that are coming to them as a result of what's happening in the informal market. But for us directly, no.
So you've got big business opportunity coming through, because Minister of Finance said that all informal traders should have POS machines. You supply this?
No. So we're not in that space again. But
you're in that space in other countries.
Yeah, look, so so our Botswana business is really pinnacled around our NCR offering. So we supply, I think, 98% of the ATMs in that country because of our relationship with NCR. So we're the sole distributor for ATMs in Botswana, and we maintain them as well. We also do a lot of point of sale service and maintenance with our agreement with Altron. So we subcontract and manage a lot of the retailers' point of sale systems in Botswana. But again, we are not directly in selling devices, but it's really, well, point of sale devices, but really on the maintenance and support side of those.
But you can't, aren't you looking at that? Because that would mean that over 3 million of Zimbabweans are around in the informal sector. And imagine.
So look, I think the minister, I think his message is clear, and I think we understand his ambition. But I think that it's not an overnight thing, right? And I think there's a variety of reasons that it's not going to happen simply. Number one is, to have a point of sale device, you need a business address, license, to register for deposit at the bank. The informal guys do not have business licenses and even tax clearances. So the banks, I think from a compliance perspective, you can't just walk into a bank and say, I need a point of sale machine because I've got a tuck shop in Buliriro. They want to know proof of address, and then the devices come with a cost as well, right? So how many of those informal traders are going to comply? Maybe there's ways of making them comply, but the banks will not even be able to give them those devices because it has to be attached to some bank, right? Whether it's Standard Bank, Stanbic, or CABS, or Bank ABC, I don't know. It's going to be, in my view at least, not so easy because of that.
And on that point that you raised, that it's not going to be easy, I just wanted to pick your mind. The Minister of Finance says manufacturers don't supply informal traders, right? And they say, informal traders, I'm going to give you POS machines to sell. Now, what would they be selling if the manufacturer is not supplying to them?
So I think that's a question for the minister.
I'm just saying, doesn't it strike you as odd?
Look, I understand the idea behind it, right? So the manufacturers are being discouraged from supplying the informal traders because we want to curtail the informal traders. But if that then happens, then I think it will force the informal traders to regularize. And I think that's the idea behind the ministers, to say, well, if they can't get goods because they're informal, they don't have a tax clearance or a bank account or whatever, then you must not supply them with goods. And if they are not supplied with goods, then I think on the other end, the informal trader will then say, well, look, now I can't, I maybe need to formalize. So I think that's the idea behind it. How it is implemented, we'll yet to see.
You recently got an award as a business. Let's talk about that.
We've had multiple awards. So which particular one?
The recent one, the most recent one.
Oh, yes. Thank you for that. So as Tano Digital Solutions, we were awarded the Cloud Performance Partner of the Year at the SAP Award ceremony this week in Johannesburg. And that award was a recognition of Tano Digital's success in selling and deploying SAP cloud solutions in the Africa region. So we actually received the top award in Africa, beating some of the big four, not some, but all, because we were the top guys. So very proud of my team and the Tano group for this huge achievement.
Yeah. So the people who just hear you talk about SAP, they really don't know what SAP does or what it stands for. Maybe if you could just,
So SAP is an application. It's mainly an application. It's an ERP application with the capability of running end-to-end business environments. So your back office, finance, procurement, warehouse management, plant maintenance, any business from a solution perspective requires SAP is capable and enabled to do that. And they also have some external solutions like, their Success Factors, which is an cloud HR solution, which handles your talent management, recruiting, onboarding, training, succession planning for organizations, which is important. And then you've got group reporting and consolidation for group companies that have multiple companies that consolidate their reporting, group reporting, and sales analytics cloud for creating reports and matrices for organizations. So it's really a powerful solution. I think it's the top. It's in the top right in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. I think, in my view, is one of the strongest ERPs in the world at this moment. Needless to say, the government of Zimbabwe, I'd argue 60-70% of the government entities currently are running SAP for their support system as their systems.
And this is imported from.
So it's a German company.
From Europe?
Yeah. So it's a German company. SAP is a German company, but then all the countries in the world.
Can't we have a local-based solution for Zimbabwe?
You want to take us out of business, but no. So there's space for homegrown systems, and I believe even the Harare Institute of Technology, I believe they built some locally ERP for municipalities, focused on municipalities. But it's the power in the solution, right? So I always give it a comparison to say, well, look, do you get into your Toyota and drive to the bar, or can you get on your horse and ride to the bar, or can you go onto a cow-driven cart to get to the bar? You'll still get there, but there's an easier, more proven way of doing things, which is more costly, or you can stick to, old solutions or build your own solutions that will take time and investment to get to. So if you think about it, SAP spends over $30 billion a year just on research and development on a solution that's already working. So you can see that, if you don't have that scale or ability to develop, you'll never be competing in terms of product and quality of end product within SAP.
Yeah. So how does Africa leverage? And we need to talk about this. How does Africa leverage? Because most of our systems are borrowed from Europe, from America. Like if you walk in the streets right now, we are doing most of our connectivity and work on iOS, on Android. Mm-hmm. And our data sits on most of those things. We have no solution whatsoever of our own. How do we become competitive?
Look, I think it starts even with the programs, even at a high school level, right? So this is not. In my view, I don't think it's an overnight thing that will happen, and next year we'll say we're committed to building our own solutions, and next year we've got. So I think we need to make sure that our children are starting to learn relevant solutions in the technology space, right? So in most countries now, if you look at it in China and Asia, kids are taught programming even at a primary school level, right? When they get to high school, they're expert programmers, they're writing and developing. I don't believe that our curriculum is quite there yet. I know there's deliberate efforts to modernize it into the STEM area. But I think that's the first part. Make sure that we've got the right level of skill. And then secondly, we need the infrastructure to be able to, right? So I believe in Zimbabwe we have maybe 1 or 2 data centers. We really haven't adopted cloud. We don't really talk much about IoT, Internet of Things. We don't really talk much about blockchain. So it's a journey, right? So we just need to have deliberate policies that will influence or persuade the young ones to become more proficient in that, and then as well the tools and solutions to be able to then build applications. But I think we're still quite away from that. But needless to say, some young guys will be developing some brilliant applications for the phone and.
But these youngsters always end up in Europe, and we end up buying solutions from them whilst in Europe, right?
Look, I mean, it's the same argument, right? So it's really about opportunity flight, and our market, in my view, has not created enough opportunities for the really, really top end technology people. That's my view. You know, someone would rather work for Google than work for Tano Digital. It's a no-brainer. So if you are a sharp guy, and we may have had a very good relationship, and we've worked, and we know this guy is the next best thing in Zimbabwe. If Google hears about him, and trust me, and we can never compete with Google pockets, right?
There's this thing that's happening. There's this wave that's happening. Make America great again. Europe first, America first, and there's this looking inward from the Western countries. How does that affect us in terms of digital, like the issues that you're talking about? Because we are relying, and they are also reliant on us, mostly on raw materials.
Yeah, look, so I think that make America great again, and the Donald Trump slogan. Yes, they're inward looking, but I don't think they're silly not to recognize that America itself doesn't have enough skill set in terms of specific skills to move their agenda. Google knows that they need a certain type of skill. Like now we're in the AI space, right? So the world is looking for anyone who is proficient or an expert in AI, and they're going to be drawn in. So yeah, make America great again, but we'll take any Zimbabwean who's good in AI or good in this solution. So I really think that what we should do as a continent and as a country, as Zimbabwe, is really look at how we can influence change in the technology space so that it's a bit more attractive, right? And it starts with something. The government of Zimbabwe must, in my view, establish some competencies. Let's talk about cybersecurity, right? In my view, I don't think we have enough cybersecurity experts or architects or people that can defend our infrastructure as a country and as companies, and recognizing where the gaps are is, I think, where we need to invest and put in attraction and retention mechanisms so people don't feel the need to look for greener pastures.
Amazing. You said the SAP solution. You say it talks, succession issue in organization.
Right.
Yeah, I was just going to say, does it talk about succession in countries?
No. I mean, look, if you want to use it for that, I'm sure, but yeah, I don't think that's where we want to.
I just want to thank you very much, Alan, for having this amazing conversation with us. Here on Free Talk, we want to be able to deal with issues of economy, how they affect the young people, women, to include everyone, so that the young lady who's sitting up there listens to this program and it pushes them in a certain direction that will probably revolutionize the way our country looks at things, and we fortify that you as a Zimbabwean going all out, 7 countries, conquering markets in a place where we never thought that we would look at it and say Zimbabwe, apana, that kind of thing, yeah. But thank you very much for hosting us here in Johannesburg.
Yes.
Beautiful. Do you stay here permanently, or you're moving around like Wi-Fi?
Quite a bit. My wife lives in Zimbabwe, so I stay in Zimbabwe. So that's where my home is, right? But I'm constantly moving around. So tomorrow I'm off to the UK, so I'm going to be dealing with the UK business for a week. But yeah, I travel around the region where we have operations. But my home is in Mount Pleasant, Zimbabwe.
I like the fact that women are powerful. Like you did not where you stay away.
Where the madam is where your home is, right? Absolutely.
Beautiful. Before I let you go, Wallen, if maybe there's something that I didn't ask you, something that sits in your hand that you want to talk about, look the people of Zimbabwe in the eye and just have a conversation with them under 2 minutes.
Thank you, Blessed. So I think, look, first of all, thank you for this program and for what you're doing in terms of raising awareness and trying to get the message out in terms of some of the policies and the things that we're doing as a country. I really believe that as a country, we are faced with a very, very we're in a very, very opportune time to take advantage of where the country is. I think Zimbabwe, because of where we are as a country, there's just so much room for improvement in the technology space. So I implore all my other colleagues in the technology space to let's get together and see how we can put together programs to develop our youth, develop our skills in the technology space in Zimbabwe, and really grow our country and our economy. Thanks, President.
Amazing. Wallen Mangere, Tano, Managing Director, and I've been talking to him about business. Now, look, it's very important for all of us to realize that it's not only politics that matters, it's also how our people live. Provision. Vision is for a few, but provision is for many. We need to be economically sufficient for us to even be useful in determining our political future as a nation. Some argue that poverty delays democracy because a hungry and poor people can be abused for political gains and will be in perpetual poverty if we let politics take the lead. Now here, Wallen has shown us that you don't have to confine yourself to Zimbabwe, even if Zimbabwe is your country of birth and you're proud of it and you want to develop it. Spread your business across and bring the benefits back home. Thank you very much, and I wish you the best in what you're doing.
Thanks, Blessed.
Beautiful. Until next time, this is the Free Talk in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. And we here ask the questions that matter. So what? Why should you care? Hope you enjoyed this program. Until next Thursday, please join us here on Heart and Soul TV and radio, on our YouTube channel, Facebook page, and our Twitter handles. Please subscribe, follow, and share this content so that it can transform someone's life. Until next time, thank you very much.
Thanks, Blessed.
Yeah.
Thank you.